You check the numbers again, same as last week, same as the week before. You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything that you did last month when the business was growing, and now it's just flat. And here's the thing that nobody tells you about a flat line. It's not actually the scary part. The scary part is the voice that shows up right next to it. The one that says quietly but confidently that this situation that you're in right now is permanent, that you've hit your ceiling, that whatever you had going on for you is now gone and it was just a phase. I want to say something to you before we go further into anything in today's episode. That voice is lying. Not because things are fine, they may not be, but because a plateau is not a verdict on you and your business. It's a message. And most of us never get the message because we're too busy panicking at the messenger. So today I want to do two things with you. I want to get into your head a little bit because the way you're thinking about this stall is probably making it worse. And I want to get into the mechanics of it because there are actually only a few reasons that growth in your business stalls. And once you know which one you're dealing with, the fog is going to clear. This is the episode I want you to come back to, not just today, but every time your business goes flat and plateaus again, because it will. That's not a bad sign. That's just what building looks like. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. I am really excited for today's episode, not just for the topic, to talk to you about what it looks like and what to do when your business plateaus. But if you are watching this on YouTube or watching this in general, you will see that we're in a little bit of a different area. We're in a different vibe. I have always been bullish on recording my podcast at home. And that is because, let's be honest, your girl doesn't have time to be driving an hour and a half or an hour somewhere to record and driving home. I'm just going to take a second because this is a lesson I feel like is also really important. When I was going to a studio, okay, I record sometimes talking videos in a studio, guests in a studio. And one of the things that's interesting is when you go to the studio, you're on average going to spend a couple $100 to $1,000 per day to record. And so if any of you guys are thinking about starting a podcast, first of all, know that you can start a podcast with literally just you and your microphone at home on your laptop. You don't need fancy, okay? But what I knew is that if I wanted to create fancy, I always talk about this spectrum of functional to fancy. If we want to go toward fancy and away from just recording on Zoom, one of the things that I really want to invite you to think about is investing in your business versus spending in your business. And so what I do in any of my business practices is I spend on something to test its validity before I then invest into it. So for example, I have had, probably this is my third set for the podcast. The first one was a curtain in my basement. The second one was a curtain in my spare bedroom. And now what I've done is I've taken one of the bedrooms in my home and I have made it my studio. And I did that because I recognized that if I was going to spend on somebody else's studio, that was going to mean that I was spending frivolously because each time I knew I was going to have this podcast for a while. So why would I not just invest into my own equipment? And so I will be honest, for the same amount as recording 2 separate days at another studio and renting it and the equipment and all of that, I have been able to create a multi-camera, multi-lighting setup in my own home for the exact same price. So I want to tell you, if you are someone who sees people who have really professional content, really high produced podcasts or talking videos, whatever it may be, recognize that you also can have that set up. It's not something that you're like, oh man, that's like such a high production. If you seek to understand the actual approach that they're taking, i.e. what is the equipment that they're using? How are they doing this? There is a lot of opportunity for you to have that same level of quality at a fraction of having to go and invest to go somewhere multiple times a week. So with all that being said, let's get into today. Today, we're talking about how to really understand and bounce back from a plateau in your business. Have you ever had that moment where you feel like you're looking at your numbers and you're like, things aren't moving. I feel like I'm putting in the reps. I feel like I'm working, but the number is just not moving the way that I had hoped or the way that I anticipated. Me too. Okay. I have had multiple moments in my business where I plateaued, and I'm going to walk through a couple different things today. I want to help you to understand what a plateau really looks like, how it's made worse actually by the way that your mindset comes up when it happens, and what goes through your brain, what you're feeling, how that actually can contribute to the plateau being worse. And I'm also going to help you to understand from a strategy perspective, what are the areas that could lead to this plateau even being here in the first place. So I think one of the first things we have to acknowledge, which I will be honest, is not your fault. Okay. I want to give you a pass on this. If you are somebody who feels like you instantly get into your head when you're not seeing the income go up and up and up and up and up, the one reason that I believe as to why people feel this way or why that comes up for most people when they see a plateau is because, to be honest, you've been taught that plateaus are wrong. You've been told that a plateau means something about you and about your business. And it's because we've been given this picture that it's like 10K month and then 20K month and then 30K month and then 40K month. And it's like this perfect little step that you're going from one month to the next. And I will be here as the reality check. That is not how business works. So if you are somebody who's expecting every single month, I have this perfect incline of income, that's also potentially why you're frustrated with the plateau. And that's because you're expecting a certain version of business that's not actually realistic. The more realistic is that you hit 10K and then you hit 8K and then you hit 12K, but then you hit 9K and you have this kind of up and down experience, but the up and down experience is still on an incline. It's just not this perfect straight line. And so one of the things I want to first acknowledge is that if you were expecting that your business is this perfect straight line, it's part of the reason you're going to be frustrated in business because it's just not really, frankly, how business works. Okay. The other part that contributes to this is when we feel like we consume other people who we feel have that reality. You're like, well, it seems so-and-so has that happening. And I can tell you as somebody who is a business coach, even some of my most successful, those top 2% of clients that have had these insane blow your mind results that people see on our website, in our marketing, in social, and they think, oh my gosh, I want that. The other thing that I can also tell you is of all those clients, all of them still have had those moments. You see the highlight reel of their big achievement, of the big milestone, but what you're not seeing is the little moments in between. So what I want you to think about with business growth instead is I want you to picture a staircase. Okay. So literally think about you go up and then you go flat and then you go up and then you go flat. And this is because really increasing your business revenue is a climb. It is something that you are still, again, going up. You're still gaining height. You're still getting to that next level, but you're not doing so in this perfect line. And I think when we can start to picture growth as the staircase, we start to give ourselves more of a normal expectation around what business is actually going to look like and how it's going to feel as we scale. Okay. So if you are somebody who feels like you're on the flat stretch of the staircase right now, you are someone who feels like, I feel like I've been stuck. I've been working really hard. I've been putting in a lot of reps and I just feel like nothing's moving. The thing I wanted to note is that you are somebody who is not failing to grow. You're just on the step right now. This is part of the process. It's part of understanding, what does this step need from me? What do I need to be focusing on? What's important to go to the next step that I want to go do? It's not about making it wrong. And frankly, it's not about catastrophizing where you are. It's about understanding what is needed of you and how to move to that next stage you want to go to. So what I will hear typically is that people will feel like growth has paused or that they've plateaued. So they feel like things have become stagnant. The business kind of feels stale. It feels like no matter what you're doing, the needle's just not moving. Then that shifts to, oh my gosh, growth is over. Like we're going down, and we start to catastrophize. Then we start to internalize, which is I'm failing. I'm a has-been. I am somebody who it used to work. My strategy is dead. It doesn't work anymore. And then it becomes this belief of I got lucky and now I've run out of luck. And honestly, I've even felt this way. I've had moments where I had in my business a plateau and I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'm a one-hit wonder. I'm not telling you any of what I'm telling you right now from my high horse. I have been here. I have been in these moments and in these lows where I get so in my head about what this plateau means. And I'll get to a story about mine in a second. So first, what I want you to recognize is if we think about that progress in our brain, right? The reality is if you're looking at your numbers, you being plateaued is a fact. That's not a feeling. That part of that experience is valid. If you are feeling that you're plateaued, that is valid. The other part is what's not valid. The fact that you are a has-been, the fact that you got lucky, the fact that your strategy will never work again, and all these other beliefs that we start to stack on top of the fact that growth is stalled. And so what I find is the biggest differentiator, and it was for myself as well, is that most business owners are responding, and even yourself, you may be responding to plateaus with panic. And part of what allows plateaus to persist is your panic. So plateaus are normal. Your response to them may not be what's actually helping you to get out of those situations. And that's what we want to work on today. So what I want to look at is, why does our brain panic? right? We have obviously this very understandable perspective, which is okay, if the business isn't making money, our body, our brain starts to go into fear. The first is the reason I feel people panic is because there's this identity fusion with our business. And I know I had this as well, which is like your business in some respect, whether you have maybe taken a moment to actually acknowledge this or not, maybe at some points, your business being successful or not successful has also meant that you feel successful or not successful, right? So like you attribute the success or the decline of your business to the success or the decline of you. And so when your business feels like it's not moving, when it feels like it's not generating the money that you want, it's not moving the needle, it can get really frustrating. You feel like, okay, like I feel like I'm failing. Not just the business is failing. I feel like I am failing. And it's something that is difficult because then what it means is that we are taking this flat moment in business and we are using that to become a verdict of us and who we are and what it means about us and our value. And so what we want to look at is if you are afraid of revenue being flat, it typically means that you are internally connecting this in some way to what it means to be true about you. So you want to ask yourself, are you disappointed in the business right now? Or are you afraid of what this month says about you? And for me, when I've had plateaus before, I had so many narratives. I'm a one-hit wonder, as I said. I clearly can't lead. I don't know what I'm doing. I spiral in those moments just as much as the next person, right? But that was because I didn't have these tools yet. And I remember back to our staircase analogy, I had gotten on a call with my mentor at the time and I was really plateaued and I was so frustrated. I was doing everything, okay? I was literally trying every strategy. I pulled out every tool in my toolkit to try to attack this problem of moving the needle. And one of the things that I really feel like landed for me and it completely shifted my reality on business is he said, Kate, and this is very Canadian, by the way. He said, Kate, you're in the middle of your hockey stick. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, picture a hockey stick, right? You've got that flat portion at the bottom, and then you've got the quick incline that goes straight up, right? One of the things that most people can't do is that they can't stomach and they can't get comfortable in the flat part of the hockey stick. And so I was at this place where I was putting in those reps, right? I was doing the work. I was executing the strategies. I was doing everything that I had been taught to do. And I thought, where the heck are the results of this? Like, where is the momentum connected to this effort? And that flat portion of the hockey stick is the same to be true in any other part of your life. Think about going to the gym. If you're somebody who wants to get fit and you want to start going to the gym, the reality is the day you go to the gym is not the day you get abs. It's potentially 3 months, 4 months later that you're going to start to see that incline. So what I had to recognize was like the day that I put in the effort is not always the day that I will reap the benefit of that effort. And so it's also a matter of mindset of can you sustain your mindset, sustain your momentum, sustain your drive, your vision, your energy, your focus during this flat part so you too can have your hockey stick moment. And I will tell you, as someone who is on the other side, obviously, of this situation now, I did have that hockey stick moment. He called it perfectly, which is I was putting in all these reps. I felt like nothing was moving and I was super, super frustrated. I believe at this point I was probably stuck around $40,000 a month. And I remember there was like this day that it felt like everything started to become flow again. Everything started to become easy. Every strategy that we were doing was working. Everything that we were integrating was landing. And we were like, okay. Like it was like, don't touch anything. Everything's working. Don't touch anything. And it felt like everything started to get into flow again. And I remember that moment so intentionally because I recognize that in any bucket of our business, in anything that we're integrating, we are going to have these moments where we feel like it's not working or that things are not moving. And it's that hockey stick moment that tells us, no, it's going to move. It's just a matter of you have to sustain this effort to get that outcome because it's on its way. The other analogy that I use for people, in case this lands for you, is the day that you plant the seed is not the day you collect the harvest. And this is what I'm noticing with a lot of people with plateaus in their business. You believe that because you've planted a seed, you've put up a post, you created an offer, you did a launch, you did something as an intention of you planting a seed for your business. You believe that because you planted that seed today, the harvest should appear the same day. And this is why I tell people all the time, where you are 6 months from now is a direct byproduct of what you were doing today. Because you have to plant seeds in your business and recognize that that harvest is going to come to you 3-6 months down the line, not the day you plant it. So then you have to ask yourself, what are the seeds that I am planting? And am I confident that those seeds and the way that I'm planting them, the way that I'm nurturing them are going to create a harvest? And so that's something that I really anchor to. The hockey stick, the staircase, the planting seed analogy, all of these are an anchor for you to remind yourself that this process, not even just in business, but in life, is normal. And the same thing is true when it comes to your business. So first, we want to look at that identity fusion, right? Have we technically, or even by accident, connected our identity and our value to the business? The second thing is, I would say, comparison, which is the fact that you are not comparing your plateau to your previous business. You're comparing your plateau, if we're going to be really honest, to other people you see online. You see other people who seem, you'll notice the word I use, seem, who seem to look like they're crushing certain milestones. You look at other people who seem to have an easier time in business, who seem to be able to 2, 3, 4, 5x their income online. And you're thinking, okay, well, clearly they're not in a plateau. So why am I experiencing one? And we use other people's journey and other people's businesses as a reference point for what is quote unquote normal for us. And so I think it's really important that we recognize, and I can tell you this confidently as a business coach, 99% of what you're seeing online is not even the true experience of what someone's having in business. Like, I have had somebody that I knew as a peer, and again, like they would tell the story on their own, but I had somebody who I knew as a peer and they were having this huge banner month in their business. And online, they were having these record numbers. What most people didn't see is that they were, yes, having this record launch now, but literally 30 days earlier, they had to take $40,000 of a loan from their family in order to be able to get that number, because the business was going under and they didn't have enough money until this launched. And it was the hope that this was going to be successful, which it ended up being. But the reality was 30 days earlier, they had to take a $40,000 personal family loan. That's something you didn't see. That's something that you weren't aware of, but that you've yet been comparing yourself to, of, oh, they had this massive launch. They're making so much money. They now have half that launch they just made potentially to pay back to their family. So this is where it's really important that we ask ourselves, what is our reference point? Okay. And one of the things that I think is important is to ask yourself, are you actually comparing your business to your own numbers? Are you comparing what you should be doing to what you did last year? Or are you comparing what you should be doing this month or this year to somebody else who's in your space? And have that really honest conversation. For me, I was always comparing to other people in my space. I was always looking at, well, so-and-so is making this much money and so-and-so has got this type of launch happening and these types of results. And I want to have that too. And I became increasingly frustrated. So it was when I started to look at my own numbers, it was really interesting because at the beginning, the growth we had was so massive. Here I am thinking, oh, I'm stuck in this plateau and I'm frustrated because the business isn't moving. And then I look at my numbers, I'm like, wait a second, fast forward, we hit 7 figures 18 months after starting my business from scratch. I was a server. And 18 months later, I had $1 million business, right? So when we really think about that, of looking at my own data and tuning out the noise, I don't care if so-and-so made 2 million. I don't care if so-and-so made 3 million. At the end of the day, that's an incredible accomplishment. And so when I started to tune out other people, I feel like I got this like peace within me of knowing, okay, is this quote unquote normal, not for the industry, but for me, for my own results. And so the third mindset thing that we also see come up, right? So we've got that connecting your business success to your own personal worth. We've got comparing and the distorted perspective we have by comparing ourselves to the wrong anchor. And the third, which is probably the most, I would say, self-identifying, meaning you're gonna be like, oh, yeah, I've done that, is the fact that we have urgency bias. One of the things that always happens when people come to me and they feel like they've been in a plateau and they're frankly hiring me to help them to get out of the situation is that they have this belief of we need to do more and we need to do more faster, right? This belief of we need to post more, we need more offers, we need more hours, we need more hustle, we need more stuff, we need more team, we need to invest more money, we need to spend. But the thing that I always tell people is busy is not the same thing as effective. And it's actually probably one of the biggest misunderstandings about having a plateau in your business. And that's because typically 9 times out of 10, the plateau that you're experiencing, it has nothing to do with volume. It's not a matter of reps. It's not a matter of volume. 9 times out of 10, it's going to come down to strategy and it's going to come down to structure, which is what are you doing and how are you doing it? Not a matter of you need more, not a matter of you need to add. It's not a matter of more stuff. And often you'll hear me talk about this. Scaling is a matter of subtraction and not addition. It was a great quote that I got from one of my mentors, and it has been an anchor for how I look at my business and also how I look at other people's businesses, because it is a matter of understanding the structure problem, the strategy problem that is experienced right now in your business is not going to come from being solved in a perspective of panic. And it also means that if you are panicking, you're not seeing things clearly, which is 9 times out of 10 why people start to go into, okay, we need more, we need more. You'll see somebody who's in a plateau, who's never posted on TikTok, all of a sudden we're posting on TikTok. There are strategy pieces and a structure element to your business right now in this moment that if you knew the needle movers of your business and how to subtract all other noise outside those needle movers, you would then understand what you needed to do to get out of the plateau. Oftentimes, we're adding more, which creates more strain, more bloat of our time, our energy, our resources, more cost, which actually puts further strain on you and further strain on the business. So, what I want to break down is the 4 different areas that you can look at if you are somebody who's actually experiencing a plateau right now. If your growth is stalled and you're feeling like nothing's moving, these are the areas that I want you to look at because they're what I would audit if you came to me in a plateau. Okay. So the first area that I look at is when it comes actually to your offers. So I'm looking at, are we capped? This is something I actually see many, many times in 2 different buckets. Number one, if you are someone that does a lot of one-on-one mentorship, or if you are somebody who maybe has a mastermind or you have a program where you are literally the heart of that. Okay. So you've hit what I consider to be your capacity ceiling. This is really where you physically do not have more energy, more time, more capacity to serve more clients. This is also going to be seen within agencies who feel like they're signing on clients, they're bringing people on, but then they go, okay, well, I don't have any more team to serve these people that I want to bring on. I don't have any more resources to sign a client right now. So therefore, they're trying to figure out, how do I generate revenue when I feel like I don't even have anybody to serve the people that I want to sign? So what we want to look at is looking, are you maxed on capacity? Are you maxed out on your time? Are you feeling like you can't sign more clients right now? Because if you do, you will go under. Plateaus are not always about marketing and sales. People assume that plateaus simply means that we don't have a lot of marketing and we don't have a lot of leads coming from that marketing. But there is a reality where it is that you are literally capped. You're like, I physically cannot grow past this point because I don't have the ability to deliver to more people or to more clients. So it essentially means that you've hit this place where you actually cannot scale without changing the structure. Again, this goes back to that structure word. This could just be literally looking at the structure of your offer, looking at, how do I need to restructure support? Do I need to restructure my price point? Do I have to start to delegate, i.e., have somebody else come in as part of the support of the offer in order to be able to serve more people and get more clients? This could come down to the fact that you actually are missing an offer. Like, I had a client recently who came to me and felt like she was at a certain number and she's like, I can't move past this. And what we identified is that she actually had a different stage of person that she could be talking to, a different stage of person that she could support, that if she did support that person, if she leaned into that, could generate an entire $500,000 a year by creating this additional offer. So it was looking at, is there a genuine gap in your product suite? Is there a structural issue with your support? The other thing is also looking at, do you need to evolve the offer and your product suite to be able to not have it connected to your effort? I often see people who indirectly, unintentionally make themselves the heart of the product. They don't actually create structure. They don't create systems to delivery. They make themselves, and you may even have done this for yourself, you make yourself like the heart of why it works, which means if you remove you or if you change anything about you involved in the offer dies. It doesn't work. So one of the things that we want to look at is this something that we've actually created as a structural cap? And how can we restructure to allow infinite opportunity for clients to come in and clients to be inside that offer? Now, I want to acknowledge, if you are somebody that's at this capacity cap, whether you are an agency owner, a coach, it doesn't matter. If you are at this cap in your business, one of the things we have to acknowledge is that the next version of your business that you want to go to, that next step on your staircase in scaling to the next phase you want to go to, we have to also remember that sometimes getting to the next stage is not going to look the way that the business has gone right now. You are naturally going to hit these inflection points in the different stages of your business. Usually it's like 0 to 10 or 15K, 15 to 30 to 50K, 50K to 100K. There's these moments of adjustment, these moments of refinement that need to happen, versus what I see is that people have a structure that worked for them at $20,000 a month, and now they want to make $100,000 a month without ever changing how they did it. They think it's just more of what they've been doing. And then that's part of what actually causes you to plateau, because the structure is the issue, not your strategy, not your marketing, not your leads. It could have everything to do with the fact that the actual structure of how you've built this isn't really designed to be done at the level that you're asking it to be done revenue-wise. The other thing that we do see is marketing cap, which is the audience and the strategy that you're using when it comes to your marketing. What I see is that oftentimes people, especially when they build some level of audience, and you may even have this in your own business, you feel like you've been doing this for a couple years, you've been posting for a couple years, you're kind of talking to the same people over and over again. When you do that and you feel like you've got this good audience base, we kind of sometimes get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, the problem with that is you end up talking to the same people over and over and over again. So without consistently always increasing and growing your audience, it means that we really are fishing from the same pond. So then it becomes increasingly more difficult in order for you to catch a quote unquote fish because you're not replenishing your pond. So the same thing is going to be applied when you're experiencing a plateau. If you are somebody that is not constantly cycling new people and new, frankly, potential leads into your audience, you are going to find at a certain point that you feel like you're talking to the same people over and over again. Because the possibility is you are talking to the same people again and again. So you can see this in things like you see the same people that are buying your stuff. Maybe you do low ticket, you've got some high ticket or mid ticket offers, and it feels like you're like, Sarah is the person who's liking every story. Sarah is the one joining each of these offers. Sarah is the one who's downloading or buying my course or my freebies. You're seeing the same people all the time and you're not seeing new fresh eyes every week. That is a clear indicator that your audience and your capacity in your audience has maxed. Not seeing an actual increase in visibility or followers. So if you are somebody who, for example, has a podcast, is your podcast getting new views and new subscribers? If it's not, it means it's stalled. If you are someone on Instagram who feels like your reach and your visibility has been the same and you're also not generating new followers, it's stalled. So we really want to get an understanding of, with the audience that you have, do you have data to tell you that new people are coming in and refreshing your quote unquote pond? If you're not, it means that you may very well be marketing to the same people over and over again. With this, the belief around marketing is that conversion has to do from marketing with something around your pipeline or your funnel. We have to tweak the offer. We got to change the pricing, change the sales page. And sometimes, yes, there is an aspect of changing resources or parts of your funnel that can help to make an adjustment. But if I'm going to be honest, if your funnel has converted people before, let's just say you have social media to an application and then people submit an application, they book a call, and then they buy from you. If that has worked before and all of a sudden it died, it's not necessarily the fact that applications don't work anymore. It's not the fact that calls don't work anymore. It's about the fact that something prior to that system, i.e. your marketing, your audience, your visibility, your nurturing, has been adjusted or has been slowly on the decline, and now you're feeling it. Again, going back to this mindset of what you experience in your business right now is a byproduct of the 3 or 6 months prior. So when we get into this place where we are feeling like we want more leads, we want more sales, we have to also look not just at bottom of funnel, meaning it's got to be the sales call, it's got to be the DM conversation, it's got to be something sales, but also look at top of funnel, because 9 times out of 10, when you're scaling, you have a tendency to get comfortable, to get kind of in this routine, this way that you've always done things. And it can be a very scary place to be, because it means that if you do get comfortable, you could be the reason that you are plateaued. And that's because we haven't adjusted or kind of changed anything strategically in a very long time. So if your top of funnel is slowing down, you are going to feel it in the conversion of your business. The other is a systems cap. And I see this so often. I know that when I say the word systems, it's not very sexy. It's not something that we're like, ooh, I can't wait to dive into systems, right? The reality is systems are not a very sexy thing for people to build, but they are a massive, massive impact on a scaling business. And so if you are personally a constraint in your business, it typically means that everything is routing through you, that there's only one of you and you're feeling like you're needing to be everywhere and you're pulled in a million different directions. And oftentimes that you are pretty clearly and evidently the bottleneck, okay? If you are the bottleneck, it's also part of why your business is going to experience strain. You can think about probably in your mind, if I was to double or triple my business, it would almost terrify you because you're like, I don't think I could handle that. As you, as the operator, the founder, you're like, I don't think that I could navigate doubling my business right now. It would be a lot of pressure on me. And what you try to do when you're in this place is you try to grind more, right? You're like, okay, like everything's feeling like it's pulling at me, but I'm just going to get up earlier. I'm going to start to work a little bit on the weekends. I'll put a little bit of extra hours in. And if I just work more, then I will get out of this this reality, this feeling in my business. And what I'm going to be honest about is if you really want to move your business, if you're feeling this way and you're feeling like you're the bottleneck and you really want to move your business forward, the thing you have to look at is delegation. It is SOPs. It is processes. It's automation. I had somebody who came to me, same thing, was plateaued in their business. And they were like, I feel like I literally can't move past this point. I'm already drowning at $30,000 a month. How am I possibly going to go to 120? And I said to her, it's about leverage. We need to look at where you're not being leveraged properly. And when I went into the back end of the business, there was no systems. There was no process. There was no automation, delegation. So many things were disjointed and disorganized and basically created this scheduled chaos every single week when she would operate in the business. So one of the things that I think is really important is that we acknowledge that something, again, structurally with the systems could be the reason that you are capped. So oftentimes when we look at, oh, well, I'm plateaued, it has to be more marketing, more sales. It could very well be that you don't even have any opportunities to convert somebody. And if that's the case, it's going to come down to your marketing being adjusted and your marketing being tweaked. But if you have traffic, if you have leads and they're not closing, it means that that is the sales process. If you are someone who feels like you have interest for new clients, but you don't have any capacity to take them, that means that you're the bottleneck. It means that you actually have the ceiling of the business. So it's really important that we recognize when a plateau happens, rarely is it only going to be marketing and sales. There are many other reasons that people get capped. And the last, which I would actually say is probably the most common, but also the most difficult for most people to diagnose, is energy. And this is probably the most non-strategic thing that you'll ever hear me say to you. You are the lid of your business. Okay. So I had a great quote shared with me by a past mentor, Xander, and he had said to me, a business will never exceed the lid of its leadership. So if you are someone who feels like you're energetically wiped, you're burnt out, you're uninspired, you're feeling no motivation, no excitement for what it is that you're doing and what you're creating. If you feel like you are in a place where you are feeling like your battery has never been lower, your business is not going to exceed your level of leadership in your business. Your capacity for growth is directly correlated to the growth of the business. So if you are somebody who feels like you're going through the motions, you feel like you have very little ideas, very little inspiration, you're feeling like you're just drained, you're blank, it's on empty. Everything about running your business right now might feel heavy to you and you feel like you're uninspired and you're trying to integrate a new funnel and you're trying to integrate a new offer or a new plan. And I'm going to tell you really directly, the version of your business that you are looking for has nothing to do with new strategy if you are somebody who's actually capped because of the energy and capacity you have in your business. And that's because strategy is not going to fix your burnout. Strategy is not going to fix the fact that this business is not actually supportive for you any longer and that you're on empty. Adding more things for you to do is not going to help you to break through the fact that you're capped. You're energetically capped. You're mentally capped. You're emotionally capped. So plateaus, yes, can be for sure at times connected to marketing and sales. If we don't know how to market, we don't know how to sell, we're not going to make a lot of money. That's true. But the thing that I think is a disservice is to believe that if you are having a plateau in your business, that it has to be marketing and sales. It may have nothing to do with marketing and sales and everything to do with the fact that maybe you are somebody who has a cap in your offer or your product suite. Maybe it is your marketing and your audience, your visibility, your nurturing of your funnel. Maybe it's your systems, the fact that things are disorganized or not automated or not leveraged behind the scenes to give you more capacity. Maybe you have an energetic ceiling where you feel like you are already so drained, so capped, so burnt out, and the idea of doing more and pushing more is just something that makes you feel drained. What we want to think about is that most people try to market and sell themselves out of a problem that has nothing to do with marketing and sales. I'm not saying it can't ever, but 9 times out of 10, when someone's experiencing a plateau in their business, if they have already been generating leads and sales previously, it's very rarely just more marketing and more sales needed. There's usually something else underneath that is contributing to what we're seeing from the results of marketing and sales. So if you don't identify the source properly, it means that you will not identify the solution to that source properly. So it means you'll go to solve the wrong problem, i.e., if you are somebody who feels like you are energetically capped, like you're just like, I literally I'm so beyond not motivated in this business, then what it means is that when you go into solving a problem and you say, okay, more marketing, more sales, great. Well, more marketing, more sales might mean more filming from you. It might mean more of you needing to show up, more of you needing to produce content. And if your energetic ceiling or your energetic cap is already at its limit, you're putting more strain on the true source of why you're plateaued. So this is why it's not just about giving a prescription. It's not just about saying, okay, well, let's just throw this on it. Hopefully it's going to change. It's about looking at, do we actually know the true diagnosis of why we're here? And only when you have 100% confidence that you understand why you're in a plateau, would you then ever be able to go in and to make adjustments on strategy items. And that's because if you do the strategy before the diagnosis, you're kind of giving a prescription to something you're not even sure is your problem. So when I've gone through these moments myself, and I've had moments where I've been plateaued for a couple weeks, and I've also had moments where I've been plateaued for a couple months. And these have been at all stages, by the way. I had this at like 7K a month. I had it at, I believe it was around 40,000 a month. I had 80,000 a month we were stuck at, and the business just wouldn't move. And I was like, okay, 100K a month, that's what I'm after. What the heck? Why is this not working? I used to get so increasingly frustrated. And the thing that I would say has been the saving grace is understanding that my regulation in the moments of plateaus are just as important as any strategy changes that I make. That the way that I respond to these situations is going to determine how my team also responds to those situations. Do they see me see a plateau and freak out? Or do they say, hey, Kate's open and honest about this. She's direct about it with us. And with that, we're going to figure this out and make a plan together. And when we've even had plateaus while I've had a team, it's been incredible to see all of us come together rather than be like, Kate's going to figure this out. We kind of all sit at a table and we say, okay, great. What's our strategy around XYZ? And we come together to brainstorm and to evaluate and to really have different perspectives of the same scenario that we're all in. And so I think for me, my mindset around a plateau is regulation. It is being open and honest with myself, with other people. It's doing a real audit of me before I do an audit of the business to say, okay, the business is a byproduct of its founder. So I need to look at me as the founder. Am I potentially drained? Am I potentially distracted? Am I potentially burnt out? Am I potentially hitting an energetic cap here? And I do a little self audit. Then, only then, once I've done that actual self audit, do I then go to the business? And I say, okay, great. Looking at the business, have we become distracted? Have we become too diluted in the approach that we've been taking to the business? Are we too kind of all over the place and scattered? Do we feel like we've been seeing momentum in the areas that we need? Are we capped in delivery? Do we feel like our marketing has been working? Has our sales been working? We start to ask these really critical questions. And only then do I make a plan. But I see the lack of regulation, which is the first stage, is the true determining factor of what solutions you're going to have. Because if you are panicked, you're not going to do an audit of yourself. You're not going to do an audit of the business. You're not going to check in and to evaluate. You are literally just going to go right into action, right into strategy, and that's going to be that. So it is important for us to ask ourselves, when we are in these moments of plateau, do we have the perspective we need? And do we really have a strategy to the plan? The goal of today is to help you to think about, why are you spiraling? If you're spiraling, the true answer, like really go deep in evaluating that, of again, going back to those triggers. Are we having this, well, if my business is going under, then I'm going under. If it fails, I fail. This idea of, well, that competitor is doing this amount of money. Why am I not doing that? Oh, well, the thing that we're going to do is we're not making as much money. So we're just going to do a million more things. And if we do that, that'll be the thing that moves the business. Is it a matter of you not having a real way to evaluate the business, to know which of the buckets are you bottlenecked in and not knowing which strategy angle to take because you're not really sure what the root cause is? Or is this a matter of the fact that maybe you are at a place in the business that is asking you to grow? You're being asked and invited for the next level of growth, the next stage of the business, the next level of development. You're being invited, not pressured, invited to change your approach. The other thing I will note is if you are somebody who is stuck at a certain stage, it may not be that anything is overtly wrong, but that you are invited to adjust the way that you're looking at the business, you're strategizing the business, the way that you're approaching it, because only then can we actually start to see the other opportunities that are in front of us for the next level. Remember those inflection points I mentioned? That's going to help you to see, okay, well, if we know these are the milestones where the business needs to be refined or adjusted in order to get to the next level, then what am I going to do to optimize those stages, to really refine those stages, to go from past the 30K month or the 50K month to the 100K month? We know something needs to change. Do I know what those things are? And if you don't, this is where the work begins. So the opportunity today today is to look at and remember the exit of a plateau is never one big dramatic action. It's never one big dramatic move. It is about these tiny assessments, the tiny refinements, and the tiny focus points that are going to allow you to literally have that plateau turn into a hockey stick moment. That is the difference of the people who get out versus the people who stay here. And if you are at this place where you are stuck and you are trying to figure out what to do, I'm going to tell you without even knowing your business, if you're going to approach this from strategy, it's likely that the thing that you're looking for is hidden in an area that is a tiny, small, repeatable action. Rarely is the thing that you are going to need going to be this huge overhaul. The whole business has to get thrown out and we're going to need a whole new approach. It's more a matter of what are the pieces in front of us? What are the opportunities of what we're doing right now? And what can we refine, tweak, adjust versus throw that out? This is the new strategy. Never is that the case. It's very rarely a matter of 99% of things having to be changed. And instead, it's typically closer to 1% to 2% of things needing to be changed. So I want you to ask yourself first, what is my true ceiling right now? If I feel like I've been stuck at a level of revenue, what is my actual ceiling that I'm stuck at? Second, I want you to pick one boring action in that bucket to help you to shift that root cause, right? So if it is your energetic capacity, it doesn't mean that we redo the whole business. It's about saying, okay, if I'm energetically tapped right now, how do I create some level of a small thing I can do once a week to help me to create a little bit of relief, to help me to create a little bit of momentum? If it's a matter of you are somebody who feels like your systems are part of the reason that you can't serve more clients, everything's disorganized, everything's chaotic. If that's the case, then the invitation becomes, okay, great. What can we integrate with your systems as a small thing this week to help you to create relief? This doesn't mean an overhaul. It doesn't mean everything goes in the garbage. It means, can we start to document our process this week? Can we start to document the SOPs of that? If it's visibility, maybe we need to look at with your marketing, going back to your marketing strategy and say, let's do an audit of the messaging. Let's do an audit of our data to actually see, are we getting new people inside of our ecosystem or are we talking to the same people over and over again? These are always inside of a plateau. It is always an invitation to evaluate and to look to get information so we do not panic. The panic oftentimes is going to be something that will cloud your judgment and cloud your next steps. Plateaus are simply an opportunity for us to take our perspective and get a closer look on the business. The thing that will maintain and if anything will exacerbate your plateau is going to be the fact that you panic. If you want to allow this plateau to persist and potentially be the thing that takes out your business, then go ahead and panic. If you wanted to blow up your business, go panic. Go catastrophize that this is never going to turn. Go tell yourself that it's a one-hit wonder. Go tell yourself that this is always going to be this way. We've hit our peak and we're never going to get back there. I understand having that for 30 seconds, 30 minutes. But if you've been sitting in that belief and you can be honest with yourself for the last 30 days, it's the reason you're not getting out of the situation. If you don't have the right perspective, you'll never see the right route. If you don't see the right route, you'll never see the right solution to that root problem. All of us is a domino, and the thing that you will probably take away from today is it all starts with you. So my invitation for you, if you are someone who's experiencing plateau right now, is to go through these steps. Use this as a resource that you can come back to when you're in these moments. And with this, I want to assure you, you are not alone, okay? You're not alone if you're experiencing a plateau. You are not alone in this experience of why do I feel like I'm not banner month after banner month and there's never a decline, even if it's a couple $1,000s. Remember, your business is a staircase. We have flat moments and we have peaks. It's understanding when you're in the flat moment, what are you doing to help with the peak? And if you don't know what that is the invitation to get more insight. So I am somebody who does not typically talk at all about the work that I do with people. But here's one thing I will say. This is a pivotal moment in your business. If you are listening to this and you're like, I don't know what the problem is. I don't even know where to start. I'm feeling paralyzed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. First of all, I hear you and I see you because I know that feeling and that moment so well. But the other thing I want to invite you to is if you were in this place, message me. I'm happy to jam out with you in the DMs and be like, hey, here's what I see. This is what I'm thinking. Tell me what's going on and to give you my insight. Of course, if you actually are wanting in-depth, intensive support, we have that as well. But the thing that I would never want you to do is to sit in this and have no clarity as to why you're there. So if you are in a place right now where you are in a plateau, all I want you to do is just message me on Instagram, the word plateau. That'll just tell me where you came from and what you're looking for help with. and you and I can chat and look at, okay, what is the thing that is the bottleneck of where you are and how we can move this past. So with that, I hope today was helpful. Use this as your guide as you are navigating plateaus for yourself and for your business. And with all of that being said, I will see you on next week's episode. And as always, stay ambitious.